part one of the workshop and released a few different parts of that over the course of last week. And then on Tuesday, we opened up the enrollment for the Business Analyst Blueprint certification program. So in that free workshop, we covered why people pursue business analyst roles, what the opportunities are within the profession, how to get started by analyzing a business process, and then also gave you the overview of the complete foundational business analyst skill set that we cover in the Business Analyst Blueprint. So if you don't know me or haven't seen those, I'm Laura Brandenburg. I'm the founder and CEO of Bridging the Gap and the creator of this program and the writer of most of the articles on the blog. Also with my team today from the team are Paula Bell and Nadine Milner. So hello to Paula and hello to Nadine.
Hi, everyone.
Hey. And we also have 4 special guests, and I will get to them in a minute, and you will be able to hear a lot of details from them as well. And I'm super excited to share their stories with you today, and just super grateful that they are here to share their stories with you. So as you have probably seen, we are enrolling now for our next session of the Business Analyst Blueprint certification program. And this is where you can earn your applied certification in business analysis. And one thing that really differentiates the program is that you actually apply the business analysis techniques on the job. And as a result, you not only build a portfolio of work samples, which is great to be able to share with employers or use on the job or use on your projects, but you also earn an application-based certification, the ACBA, and there are no exams for that. There's a couple of, there's a share around exams before. There's not an exam in the sense of a multiple choice exam. There is assessment in terms of we assess your work deliverables, but it's your actual work deliverables that comes in through the program. And what happens is because of that piece of the program, which has been in place for the last several years, pretty much all of the training that we've done at Bridging the Gap has that application and assessment piece for it. This is the first time we're formally offering this, though, as a certification. What participants face is a lot of uncertainty about what example should I choose, right? And so I thought, what better way to answer that question than showcase how this works and how some of our actual participants have chosen examples and worked through the materials. And that's really what the panel is all about today. So I just want to welcome Tammy, Manzoli, and Hio. Thank you so much for being here. And we're going to get to speak to each of them and hear their story in just a bit. And I want to say we are talking about this in the context of completing the Blueprint program. And whether you are thinking of joining us or not, really just be listening in to help yourself see the opportunities in your current situation. And it could help you shift out of like some limiting thinking that might keep you from keeping you stuck of like thinking that this isn't possible for you. Okay, so just a few ground rules. Please do keep yourself on mute unless we ask you to elaborate your question. That just allows us to have a clean recording and also clean kind of listening space for everyone. Post your questions in the public chat. So use question at the beginning if you really have a question for a specific participant or a question about the program, put question beyond that in front of that so it stands out. There's already a ton of conversation in the chat, which is amazing. But it can get a little hard to manage, right? So like question allows us to just scan through and see some of the key pieces. And please try to stay away from private chats. So especially with our participants, they are gratefully showing up here to share their stories with you today. And we want to be able to be sure everyone can benefit from what they're sharing. And so if they might be in the comments and responding, but if they can share publicly, then everyone gets to benefit from that versus kind of having a private chat. And definitely don't private chat to me because I will most likely miss it because I'm work facilitating and Paula and Nadine are going to be bringing questions in. So it's just important to have it in the public chat so we can all do our best to get to your question. And please just post your question once unless we call for reposting at the end. And mostly we're here today to take questions about the panelist experience, any questions you have about your experience specifically, and also any questions about the Blueprint certification program. So just to give us a little bit of context about what we're talking about when we're talking about gaining business analyst experience, these are the core skill areas that we cover in the blueprint. And we cover them because we see them as being foundational to succeeding as a business analyst. So as you are thinking of your opportunities, you want to be thinking across these 4 skill areas. So in the workshop, we really did a deep dive into the business process aspect, but that's really where you learn and analyze how to improve an end-to-end business process. And what the takeaway from that is like that you discover the true business need. You get the business stakeholders on the same page about what they even want before technology comes into play. And so you help them see the bigger picture of what they want. And then the second module that we have is the use cases and wireframes module. And that's where you learn how to model functional software requirements and get both your business and your technical users on the same page, right? So, and this is, even if you don't know the details of how to like build the software, it gets you to the level of detail that you need to be specific that a software person could build that. And then data modeling is how we manage information. And this is really essential for systems integration projects where your data is flowing between multiple systems, as well as migration projects where maybe you're moving from one system to another. Or even just a simple project where you're putting a new field on the screen, but like, is that something that's about the customer? Is it about the order? Like, what's that about, right? And being able to talk about data and where that piece of information belongs and where else it needs to show up in the system. And then we look at the whole end-to-end business analysis process. So that's, we cover in the BA Essentials Masterclass. Some of you have taken that as a standalone kind of self-study class where we teach you the 8-step business analysis process. And if this is really the framework that allows you to plan and engage with stakeholders, take a project from beginning to end, and just having a process like that, what we've seen participants find is it gives them a lot of credibility because they have a structured approach instead of feeling like they have to make it up as they're going along. So now when you're in the blueprint, you have 5 months to apply these skills. There's 4 modules. We allocate about 5 weeks to each module. So it's a gradual progress through them. But you could kind of be thinking about where could you apply these techniques now? So with that, I would just love to hear from you. We've already got a lot of shares. But what's really brought you here today? Like, why do you want to gain this real world project experience? Like, what difference is it going to make for you, right? Like, what is the gap between where you are today and where you see gaining experience building you? Because this is really what we're going to be talking about. And sometimes that stretch can be a little uncomfortable. So some of the results that we see from our participants are on-the-job recognition and opportunities. So once you start doing BA work or doing it in a more structured, formal way, you tend to be recognized as someone who can do that. And more of that kind of work will flow to you. And so you can start to see, I like to call it the virtuous cycle of one experience leading to another experience, leading to another experience. And we have some stories around that today. Another thing that happens when you just get started increasing and expanding your experience is it does increase your confidence, right? Learning on its own doesn't necessarily increase your confidence. Like consuming the information is an important step, but it's not the only step. And actually, if you stay too long in the learning step and the information gathering step, it can actually become information overload and can start to like be detracting from a confidence perspective because it feels like there's so much you don't know, right? And you haven't actually gotten in and applied it. So when you take action and apply even a small piece of what you're learning, you will have that feeling like I can actually do something with this. I can actually go and use it on the job. And this applies whether you're getting started in the business analysis or you're in a BA role and you want to do something more expanded. You just need to start applying what you're learning to increase your confidence. This also builds your work history because when you gain experience, even if it's in a volunteer role or outside your normal work, it really builds up your work history. Right, and you start accumulating that work experience. And that's important because there really are very few entry-level BA roles. Most often, those few roles are reserved for recent college graduates, and they are at entry-level, just out of college salaries, which if you have some career experience behind you, isn't a great step to want to make. And often, like, even if you do want to take the salary cut, like, you will be passed over for those opportunities as somebody who is overqualified. And I see people trying to apply for jobs that are too low and then being really frustrated that they're not getting calls back. And it's because they're actually not aiming high enough. But you do need to start building up that experience and to qualify for those roles that require a few years of experience. And so it's by consciously applying the experience in the role that you're in. And finally, it gives you the opportunity to have the BA title. So when you're seeking new opportunities, the title can be really important just to kind of get through some of the filters by recruiters or by hiring managers. And once you've done the BA work, you can showcase this on your resume by taking on that title as a role descriptor as well. So one more slide here, and then we're going to go right into our panel. So I wanted to share some of the opportunities that you might have based on what type of role you're in. So first, if you are a practicing business analyst, right, this is about where do you actually have opportunities to gain experience. You could look at an upcoming project, so you could get ahead on your analysis work for something that's coming. You could look on an active project, so a project that's happening right now. And most of our participants who are practicing BAs choose something that's present for them right now. So they're actually applying it on the job and getting instructor feedback and building that work sample. And so it's very present for them, and they're actually able to improve their work really quickly because it's an active project. Often you have to, for the program, you just need a piece of it, right? So you might be analyzing several processes, you just need to do one for the program, but you can take the learnings that you receive and apply it to all of those processes. And when that doesn't work out, you can also look at a past project, and you can learn a lot by looking at how you would have done things differently on a past project as well, and revising some of those deliverables and bringing them up to industry standards. Now, what if you are employed but not in a business analyst role? So you can look at a process that you perform on a daily basis. So anything you do daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, even annually, ideally one that uses some sort of software. And you get bonus points, or kind of an extra edge, I should say, like, not that there's bonus points in the program, though I use that term from time to time for like the extra thing that you can do, if you focus on something that's error prone or really visible. And the reason is when you solve a really critical problem from your organization, that helps that snowball that we talked about, or that virtuous cycle, move a little bit more quickly. So your work will be seen a little bit more readily when you do something that has a high impact. So if you feel ready to jump into something that like everybody's always complaining about, and then you go in and apply some of these techniques to fix it, it can help you gain a lot of credibility really quickly. And we have plenty of participants who are not currently employed. In fact, I was just looking at our new participant survey, and almost half of the current people who have enrolled are currently in between positions. And so there's lots and lots of opportunities as well for you to build that work history and get that title on your resume. We've seen people volunteer for a nonprofit or a local organization, especially local small businesses right now. I think they need to figure out how to pivot in this new economy. And so looking at a business process and then looking how it could be automated or changed or adjusted to thrive right now would be really, really great opportunity. You can also just use a personal process. So like how you make an investment decision, how you do your annual taxes, it's the perfect time to be thinking about that. How you manage your LinkedIn contacts, how you apply to a job, anything like that. And we've also had people look at previous projects and again, go back to those previous projects and create new work samples that are really up to industry standards. And then they have that work portfolio that they can share. And we don't actually have someone on our panel today who was unemployed when they completed the program, but I've shared lots and lots of examples in the workshop and in our case studies of people who've done that as well. All right, and so now this brings us to our panelists, and I'm really excited to highlight their successes for you today. And I'm incredibly grateful to each of you for taking the time to be here and sharing your story. And I know you're going to inspire a lot of people as well. And I'm really proud of what they've done. And they have a diversity of backgrounds and experiences, and they're going to share a little bit about their role and the project that they chose for the blueprint, so that you can gain insight into, how that might work for you. And I just want you to be listening, even if this person is in a different situation than you or a different industry, like what piece of this might give me an idea that I can use and I can go forward and use to move my career forward this year. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my slides and we'll start with Tammy. Hey, Tammy.
Hi.
Yeah,
Hi.
you want to go ahead and kick us off? I know you had some things that you definitely wanted to share.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tammy. I have been working at a steel foundry in Tempe, Arizona for about the last 2.5 years, but I've been doing BA and SAP work for over 20 years. My current role is a senior business systems analyst, and I have learned both SAP and business analysis work just by doing the work, lots of trial and error, and a little bit of luck at times. My current company has not embraced any kind of formal BA process, and it considers the lack of bureaucracy a bonus, but I really see it differently. I was seeing projects that I was given fail to launch when I completed them, and other projects failed to garner support from the business at the beginning, and it was so disheartening to do this. And my current employer also has a very generous training budget, so I took the opportunity to get some formal BA training and trying to figure out just what I needed to do differently. From my BA Blueprint class, I chose a process from a current project that I was working on where I was just kind of lost and trying to figure out what to do. So the process was called Move a Mold from the Closing Line to the Pouring Line. And our molds are made from silica sand, and they have an average weight of at least a ton. It's like 2,000 pounds, very heavy. And a mold starts in two halves, and then they're closed, they're sealed together, and then they get moved out onto the pouring floor, where a melted metal will be poured into them. And my project was to understand the current process and figure out a better way to determine where to place the completed molds. So I worked with the area supervisor, the process engineer, and the operator to understand the current process and what their primary challenges were from every day to day. And one of my biggest challenges was the idea that this process could not be improved. Many people had attempted to improve the process in the past and had failed spectacularly. I was even told by one person that smarter people than you have tried and failed. So it was I was a little rough at the beginning.
Yeah.
But after going through this course, I was able to understand what my limiting constraints were that I was working with. And I was able to understand what I could and I could not fix solely within this one process and why. Understanding the real constraints and the why was my absolute biggest outcome of this project. And it was because of this course I was taking that I was able to figure all this out. I actually didn't fix the problem, but I learned the problem wasn't at this point in the process, which was one of the biggest problems. And I also learned the business wasn't interested in changing the upstream process where the problem actually was. And so, but now I can talk intelligently about the process and the constraints when the subject comes up, which is a huge win on my part. And the last class in this program is the BA Essentials class, and that was my favorite training out of all of it. These are the 8 steps, helped me manage projects that I've still been working on, and other projects, new projects. And I have one right now that I'm working on that's like really big and lots of view. It's like trying to set up a metrics dashboard for the foundry. And using the 8-step process, I've been able to get everyone focused on the real requirements, and I have both management support and this incredible positive energy that's really leading me to believe that I will be successful, and this project will be widely embraced in the end. And the biggest part too is my boss actually told me he's impressed with how wonderful the latest project is going. And I am just so grateful for everything that I have learned from Bridging the Gap. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Tammy. That's an amazing story. And I think what stands out to you from what you've heard, and I know we've had some interactions, over the past couple of years, is just how much resistance like you have faced in your organization. Like, it's not like, I mean, you've done some amazing things, but like nobody really wants this. Can you just talk a little bit more about what that's been like and how you've persevered through it? Yeah.
Yeah. So some projects I'm given and I just get to go off and do my thing and I get to do whatever I want. Those are the easier ones. I use the tools that I've learned. Other projects, I am just one of a couple of us working on it, and one of the other ones would be my boss, and he's just a kind of run and go kind of guy. And I'm sitting here trying to like pull him back, saying, okay, wait a minute, we need to look at X, Y, and then Z.
Mhm.
And so, and he's just, and it's so, but I have the right tools now to kind of show him what I'm trying to accomplish or the steps that I'm trying to follow. And sometimes he's more open to it than others. I'll be honest, there are still some times when he just wants to run and thinks that I'm taking too much time. But when I'm able to pull him back, our projects are just so much more successful. So I'm hoping over time I'm going to kind of wear him down a little bit to follow these steps.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And feel free to get a question for Tammy in the chat too, if there's something that you want to hear. I have a few things that I want to hear a little bit more about, but if there's something that you want to hear about her experience, like feel free to put that in the chat as well. And so what is it like, what do you think has been the crux for you of like help turn your boss around to see the value a little bit more? Like, was there a moment when he got it, or has it just been a gradual, like little bit by bit?
It's definitely a gradual, and like on this metrics dashboard that I'm on, it's actually the first project that I'm working on after I finish the BA Essentials with all the 8 steps.
Mm-hmm.
And after each step that I've been taking, he's always giving me like, wow, that was really good. That meeting went really well. And he knows that I just finished the whole program, and he knows that I got my certification, and he actually broadcast it through the company. So I got pretty high level feedback saying congratulations.
Awesome.
So I am hoping that it'll be gradual. That's just the nature of the relationship and my boss. But I am hoping that as the projects that I work on continue to be successful and lots of positive energy, that he might actually say, maybe we should follow what Tammy's doing.
Are there other BAs in your company that are doing things differently? Or are you on your own?
There's actually 4 of us.
Okay.
And everybody else has been there for many years longer than I have, so I'm the newbie. So that also makes it a little harder, because you don't want to be that person that comes in and tells everybody how to do their job. So it's a little bit of a tap dance to try to push some of my ideas.
Well, that's really interesting because you said you're the newbie, but it sounds like at this point you may have more exposure to BA practices. And I know there's organizations where the BAs they're like the senior BAs because they understand the business domain, right? Versus they understand business analysis. Is that similar to where you're at?
For me, like I have more BA experience and more domain experience than my boss does.
Okay.
But he's just the one, he's been there longer, right? And he hired me. So I think at times there's also that level of tension where he's feeling uncomfortable that he knows that I just know more than he does on so many different levels.
Yeah.
So that's also a little bit of a dance that I have to figure out.
And Nadine, did we have a question for Tammy? I see there's a few things in the chat. I'm not sure if they're questions for her.
So I think there is one question, and I'm not sure if it's specifically targeted at Tammy, but let's get Tammy's input. When starting a new project, how do you make sure that you have the right decision makers at the table?
Yeah, that's actually something that I've had to struggle with. The company I work at is actually not that big. I mean, Well, the people I work with, it's like it's big and then it's small in pieces. But what I've had to do is honestly rely on my boss and say, who are the decision makers in this? Because he's been there longer and he knows more people. And so I have to rely on him. And sometimes I even have to rely on him doing the requesting to get people pulled in for the decision making. But when he's asking and they're agreeing, then that just gives me the power that I need to pull the right people in and for them to engage.
And how are you establishing that with him? Are you conducting sort of stakeholder analysis type interviews, or are you just popping him an email saying, who do I need to get in touch with? And then once you know who those people are, what mechanisms are you using to connect?
Usually it's just a conversation I have with him. He's actually in Minneapolis and I'm in Arizona, so we're not near each other, but we do talk. We have meetings every week. And so it's just a conversation with him generally. And then once I know who I need to talk to, then I use for like this, my newest project for this metrics board, I actually set up like a kickoff meeting and I brought all the major stakeholders in and they all showed up. I was impressed. But in that meeting, I also actually, because it's so, what I'm doing is so new for this company, the first thing I did was go through and I said, what is a sponsor? Here's the sponsor's responsibilities. What is a major top level stakeholder? And here's their responsibilities. And I said, and I need SMEs, and this is what an SME does, and this is what you need to do to give them support so that I can do my project. And it was very positive. All of it, they appreciated everything that I did, and they were totally on board with all the responsibilities I was heaping on them.
Which leads us
That's
into
awesome.
the next question. Sorry, one last one.
Well, actually, I think we might come back to questions,
Okay.
Nadine. I just want to make sure we have time for all the panelists. Yeah, thank you. I know now the questions are flowing in. So Tammy, if you are able to put in the chat a little bit, that would be great. And we'll have some time at the end too for general questions. Sorry to cut you off there, Nadine. Oh. But that brings us to, thank you. That I think a lot of people are in that situation where like people in their organization are really not quite embracing, right? And so I just love to hear how you've been tackling with that. So thank you. And that brings us to Hio. And Hio, you're in a similar situation, but have a very different management support for what you're doing. So do you want to share a little bit about your story?
Yes. Yeah. So my name is Hio. I'm in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm currently a DBA/developer. And when my current manager came on board 3 years ago, the IT department was where I belong was doing a terrible job with documenting requirements. And things were getting missed left and right, and customers weren't happy because the solutions we provided weren't meeting their expectations. And we weren't happy with the vendors because the solutions they provided were meeting our expectations. And my manager said we need to do a better job with requirements. And he came from a place where they had business analysts, so he knew what they're about. And he wanted someone in the IT to train as a business analyst, so he or she could help the team do a better job developing requirements for our project. And he encouraged me to do it, so I took the opportunity. And I'd taken a few online courses before, but I wasn't really utilizing the stuff I learned because the concepts were still abstract and I wasn't sure how to apply them to my specific case. Then I saw the ad for this course on the Modern Analyst website, and I was hoping it would give me the hands-on experience that I needed to start applying the skills at my job. So for the course workbooks, I chose the process for booking resources for events. Staff at my organization hosts various events like trainings. To get set up for their events, they would ask the facilities to reserve a conference room and ask for any special room setups if needed. And if they need to reserve special equipment like streaming devices, they will contact the IT. And if they need people to sign up for their events, and they'll ask the IT to create an event registration page. I chose a project for the course because I was familiar with it, It's a process we use at work. And the process was mostly manual and inefficient and could use some improvement. So I thought I could use the work I did in the course and improve the process in the future. The biggest challenge I faced in the course was completing the workbooks. It was daunting because I wasn't used to doing an analysis work like that. I thought I understood the materials, but the moment I tried to apply to my case, I'll get stuck, especially during the modeling exercises. So I joined as many instructor hours as possible and brought up my questions. That not only answered my questions, but I also learned a lot from just watching the instructors help me and other students come to a solution by asking questions and reasoning. And that was enlightening because I've been doing things kind of backwards. I had a tendency to jump to a solution without asking much questions. And I was making a lot of assumptions about what customers were expecting from us. And I think that was one of the reasons why we were failing to meet their expectations. And after having gone through the exercise of applying the analysis process on a real project, I got a better sense of how and where I could apply the skills to improve the way we do things. Most recently, I worked on a project to develop requirements for a new document management system. It was the first project that we applied a formal business analysis process to plan, elicit, analyze, and validate requirements. I think the way we managed the project was very professional, and I'm very proud of it. Also, recently, I turned a long policy document into a single-page process flow diagram, and everyone loved it. It was easy to read, and people could clearly see who's supposed to do what and when. My role at job has been transitioning more towards that of a business analyst. Recently, I'm given tasks that are still IT related, but lean more towards business analysis side. I'm still doing my duties as a DBA, but I'm not doing much development anymore. Instead, I started working more and more projects to replace in-house developed systems with third-party ones, working on developing requirements, helping with the selection process. And then last year, we did a survey of business processes and IT assets in the organization. And as a follow-up to that, I'll be interviewing each business unit to get a deeper understanding of their processes and IT systems that support the processes, so we can better support the systems they depend on to carry out their operations. Thank you.
Yeah, that's I feel like it's just such a huge progression from not having ever done this before and really been more in a technical role to now you're helping the organization define all of its processes, right? That's really big, really big. You should be really proud. That's really cool. So the question, I feel free if you have a question for Hio to get it in the chat as well. The question I have for you is, you mentioned your manager really tapped into you for you to do this, but there's obviously an interest there. Is there something that you like better about the BA role than maybe the development and the DBA role that you had in the past?
Honestly, when I started, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was interested because it was something new, and I just wanted to do a better job myself and help the department. So that's why I get into it. But now that I'm into it, I love it because you get to learn really diverse areas of stuff. I just recently worked with e-discovery process, which I would never get into. And I'm learning risk management, and I'm helping HR and finance select the software for their processes. So I'm gonna be learning a little bit of finance and HR processes. So it's all new stuff I get to learn. So I love it.
Yeah. And it all started with that event management process, you said, right?
Yeah.
Did that come to be? Were you able to make improvements to that process?
No, it didn't go anywhere. But I'm still hoping to do something with it in the future. We had like so many other priorities, so it's in the back burner. But I think it's a fun project I really want to do when you get time.
Well, that's interesting too, because it speaks to, I think sometimes people feel like they have to have the project that something is going to happen with, right? And like just going through the analysis was still set you up to do these other things, even though that project didn't actually, you didn't actually get to make the improvements, so to speak. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Do we have any questions? I feel like there's a dashboard question, but that was Tammy. Hio, did you talk about dashboards?
No, I think that's Tammy.
Okay, that was Tammy's question. So just, that it's super impressive. Thank you for that. What else? Oh, talk a little bit about the organizational change that you're going through. This is the other piece, because you said, your manager is very supportive, but the organization is a little more tentative. So what's your role been in helping them embrace some of these practices too?
Like my organizations, like most people don't know, I don't know if anybody knows what business analysis or business analysts are, because before my manager came, like I've never heard of it. It's the first time I've heard of the role. But we are trying, my manager and I are trying to change the way we do projects, especially with major projects. We don't have like standard way of doing things right now. So we are trying to put in some structure, especially for developing requirements, because that's it's not just IT, it's all over the organization that we're not doing a good job of. So like I said, we for the document management system project, we went through the process of like planning, like making the schedule for the entire process, and the process of like eliciting and analyzing and validating the process. And it was like everyone involved was very impressed. So we're hoping that in the future going forward, at least for major projects, we'll be going through the same process. And I'm trying to, like, whoever I work with, any project I work on, I try to use like the process or technique I learned, so people can see different ways of doing things, just not stick to the old ways. So that's a small ways I'm trying to make a difference.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. So much. Yes. And so Manzoli.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Go ahead. You jump in.
Sure. My name is Manzoli Tao, and I work for Fiserv as a senior business analyst. I work in their credit union solutions group in the banking domain. So that primarily puts me on projects such as card payments, security mandates, check deposits, and most recently, home equity line of credit projects. So to also give you a little context, oops, seems like someone's outside and wanted to start revving their car. To give you a little background where I was at when I joined the Blueprint, pretty much everything was chaotic. I had just worked for a company for about 10 years, and they decided to sell their gaming division. And pretty much by extension, that meant me to a Canadian company. So, now I really couldn't rely on my past knowledge. And what was a little more interesting was that to that point, I really had just worked on one gaming project. So, depending on the new projects I would get at the new company, it meant a lot of learning. So in my mind, I took it as an opportunity to really establish if I had good processes or if it was just the knowledge I had accumulated from working with that company, and also the network I had built up at that particular point in time. So,
and not to interrupt you, but at that time you also had several certifications, right? Like you had your CBAP and your PMP, and yeah.
Yep, I sure did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, but
So,
you've kind of still felt this gap, and I think sometimes people are in that space where they have that, like a lot of the credentials, but there's still a gap. So thank you. Go ahead.
Definitely. Like to that point, like, you can know a lot, but you'll never really know everything you need to know because, different problems, different scenarios pop up, and you still have to learn on the fly, which is what I experienced then into today. For the coursework, I chose projects I was working on, especially for the new company, the first project I worked on. I really focused on processes I thought would be most challenging, and I decided to use a program to, ensure others could understand my work. So it's kind of like a vetting process, get a second opinion on what I was outlining, check, pretty much check my understanding. And really with that, when your task explained to others, you kind of learn it twice. You get asked clarifying questions, and you also, deepen your understanding of what's going on. So for the first example or first process, right, business process analysis, I was working on a ERP project, and that really kind of blew my mind. So when I first started that company, that's like the one major project where you need to know all aspects of the company. It touches on accounting, it touches on their what's the word? Their manufacturing process, their storage process. So you really get immersed into the entire company. So for that one, it was really set out to create an in-house support system for U.S. repairs. We really wanted to purchase and customize part planning, create a mobile application for field agents where they can kind of like check in when they were onto their when they're going to a location, when they arrived at their location, kind of give real-time feedback. Hey, you know what? I'm experiencing this problem or that problem, or just check a guide at that particular time. Like, if they didn't know all the information, they can have a resource on hand. So that was what I decided to document, and I documented the as-is process for that part. The next one that really stand out to me was the data module, and this is really, for me, the primary reason why I joined the program. I really kind of had limited exposure, and again, I used the same project because it provided the opportunity to map the information from the legacy system to the new system, in addition to the accounting program that they were using. So there were a lot of different moving parts. Pretty much, I really had limited exposure in that industry, and it kind of helped me gain a deep understanding and illustrate how not only people but systems need to speak the exact same language or have the same understanding for a particular word. Like when we use client, one system had one definition of it, but the other system had another definition. So we kind of had to sit down, have meetings, and reconcile those two definitions so that they both agreed. Yep. And
I just want to point out there, because we get this question a lot of, not having a technical background. And I know you came more from a business background, right? So this was a technical module for you.
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you feel like helped you kind of embrace the technical aspect of it?
Well, I would say that luckily, I took on projects in the other organization where I took on the challenge of, hey, you know what? I work in Excel. Let me see if I can program something in Excel. So I did that, and it kind of gave me a better understanding of, like, just different data elements and information. So when I kind of got here, it just further deepened that that knowledge.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So that was really immensely helpful for me. It highlighted that the planning needed for systems to talk to each other. It also highlighted how tools, techniques, and processes need to work in conjunction, and they must all align. If they don't align, that's really a significant indication that something's off, and you need to kind of go back to the drawing board and check those things out. It either introduced me or deepen my knowledge in entity relationship diagrams, data dictionaries, and system context diagrams. So for me myself, I got the most value out of that module. And another side note, like that was just like right on time because I didn't really plan on having to do a data dictionary or any of that stuff for that new company. So
sometimes it works out, right? The active project and the module are side by side. Yeah.
I was absolutely like, hey, right on point. So, yeah. For the use case on wireframes, I took on a different project. This one here was a project to remotely update ATMs. And the benefit that the client was getting is that they typically had to send out a third-party resource to these sites. So one, they had to pay for that resource. Two, they had to coordinate with casinos to even get access to this. So, most of the times casinos always want to have the ATMs up and running because that's pretty much their lifeline, how they're going to make their money. So that was really, really interesting. It helped me document and outline the relationship between you send them a request, the system does action. So that was what I used. That's the project that I used for that particular one. And I recently did the BA's Essential, and I used my current project. I'm now tasked with working on a project to automate checking deposits. So that is, that was pretty good. It helped me solidify my processes, make sure I just thought about everything in a more concise and I guess a good way to say total approach. Because it has multiple phases, involves multiple people. So it really took a lot of planning. And this one here was to do check deposits with a teller at the ATM, with a mobile device. So yeah, it definitely helped me in organization. It helped me in, just really understanding clients. And I think I heard a point mentioned by one of the panelists before about making sure you know who to go to and have like I think a stakeholder registry. That was my major challenge for this project because it was an external project and it just touched so many different groups and so many different players that I was constantly going back and forth to my manager, who I found out recently was a rocket scientist. So that was eye-opening. But I really wanted to develop those relationships and connections myself. So that module really emphasized that for me and gave tools and tips on how to do that. To give you a little context, I work with external VPs, senior VPs, internal directors, project managers, software engineers, and these can be people who did the back end, the front end. They were also API specialists involved in that project, product managers, QAs, customer service managers, customer service employees, tech publications, and finally other BAs who can also be a challenge, depending on, I'm pretty new to this company. I'm just approaching 2 years. Some of them have been there 20, 30 years. So, some of the, I guess, approaches, you bring are like, all right, that's a little radical, but, they'll hear you out. But pretty much that is really the value that I got from the program.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that and also all those different examples. So sometimes people choose like the same thing for everything, and sometimes they do jump around a little bit to different projects. And so it's nice to hear that variety as well. I definitely want to come back and ask you a few more questions during the Q&A if you're able to stick around, but I want to also make sure we get time here for Anne. I realize we're running a little bit behind my like proposed schedule. So, but the conversations have been so good. All right. But Anne, do you want to also share a little bit about your story?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, thank you. My name is Anne, and I am based in London, UK, and I'm currently working as a business analyst in a consultancy firm that specializes in Salesforce implementations. So prior to taking this course, I was very much learning on the job in terms of shadowing and having senior BAs being mentors to me. And then just going through my BA career, I realized that I had a lot of skill gaps, and I really wanted to learn more different BA techniques, and so that I could thrive anywhere, basically on any projects, in any organization, and on any domains. And then when I came across the BA Blueprint, I thought, yes, it takes everything I need to and I want to learn about. And even though it was like a huge investment in terms of financially and time and commitment, I felt like this is definitely something I want to do, as well as because I've heard and used bridging the gap before, like previously when I had different BA questions, I used to Google and then I used to jump in straight to bridging the gap. And then when I was also prepping for any BA interviews, I used to go bridging the gap and say, oh yeah, what are the questions that we normally get asked? And yeah, they had a lot of detailed content. So then I thought, okay, yes, I already used this resource already, so I do trust that even with this big investment, I could felt like I could trust it, and we'll have a return in investment. So yeah, I signed up. And then when I spoke to my manager about it, he was like, oh yeah, this is something you could expense. So definitely, if you're thinking about signing up to it, definitely ask if your company could expense it, and it's really, really worth it. In terms of the project I chose for the course, so I was working with a client who delivers end-to-end solutions and services for the government identity needs, such as when they manufacture and distribute government documents such as passports, ID card, health cards, and then to the other spectrum, the bigger scale solution in terms of e-gates that for the passport checkers in airports. So it sounds really, really cool and all high tech and stuff. But then in terms of their backend processes, they were still managing their opportunities in Excel spreadsheets. They weren't capturing all information that they had about the customer. So it's stuff like the much valuable insights or interactions that they had, and it was very much kept within their sales and commercial team. And so when other teams were onboarded on a project, and especially when towards the end of the opportunity where it's a project delivery, there was a lot of insight that was not visible for team collaboration. And also their reporting tool was being decommissioned soon. And so, yeah, so they thought, okay, now we must look for like a CRM where the goal was so that they could capture and record their existing and potential deals, enhance cross-team collaboration, and to be able to generate reports to help with strategic decision making. And the reason why they chose Salesforce was because of the reputation as being the #1 CRM, and also because their sister company, who my company also used to work with, was using Salesforce as well for a number of years. And so they thought, oh yeah, in terms of roadmap, if they ever wanted to sort of share customers for cross-selling or upselling opportunities, it'll be there with both of them using Salesforce. In terms of different techniques that I utilized in the project from what was covered in the course, I was doing process modeling to map out their current and future state. I was capturing their requirements in the user story format. I created a system context diagram where we wanted to understand how the different existing systems would interact with and expected to interact with Salesforce, as well as drafting a scope statement where we were all aligned and clear on what was the scope, what were the different constraints and assumptions that we had for the design solution. In terms of key learning and takeaways I got from the project while I was utilizing what was covered in the course was that there's in the framework, there's at the first stage, it's like getting oriented on the project. And so just understanding the project history, but also as we're working in a consultancy firm, that we have to really know the business itself. And so then when I was asking all these questions about the business model, the customer stuff, they thought, oh yeah, okay, so you want to know more about us. And so then we had a separate discovery session where, yeah, they explained all of that. And then it really helped us prepare for the workshop to make sure that we had a more personalized experience and more tailored to them and the stakeholders. Yeah, this was we didn't even have a PM assigned to the project, which was really bad, but anyway, but being able to create a BA plan where we could note down the different meetings we expected to have, as well as the deliverables we wanted to create and how long we expected to take, really helped us manage our time properly, because we were given 15 days to do sort of the design phase. So yeah, it really helped manage time as well as their clients' expectations. And the client PM also mentioned that the stakeholders really like their visualization. So we were very working remotely. We didn't have a whiteboard, so we made sure that we could virtually share screens and draw any diagrams we wanted to. And we used a Salesforce Demo system where we could sort of demo what Salesforce is capable of doing, but also when we had discussion on field level details, we were able to talk about it and actually quickly configure it in the background to show them in real time. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And if it was a, say, pick list value, also are these the values you wanted? So it allowed like really quick playback as well. And so that was very good. But then also in the course, it covers wireframes, which would have served the same purpose. And even though I didn't use it on this occasion, I felt comforted and confident that like, oh, if I were to use it, it was in my toolkit for if I wanted to use it. So yeah, so if anyone's thinking of using it, sign up to course, I definitely recommend it. Yeah, you'll build up on your BA toolkit, and then you'll have a framework which you could utilize and mold for any projects that you're on. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and I think it's so fascinating to me because in your consulting organization, it sounds like there's a pretty formal process, or sometimes you have to work with your client's process, right? So like, how has it been for you to like take the tools that you've learned and integrate them into those other two processes that already exist, right?
Yeah, so yeah, my organization has one sort of process, but then they are very they're happy to sort of change if you have other best practices. And so that's why I was always so what I've learned in the course, to utilize it and sort of mold it, say, okay, so this is what I've learned and this is how we could be conducting the discovery phase, just making sure that we're all oriented, like everyone's aware of their roles. Do we have all the project history, and do we know the existing systems and processes in place? Yeah, so it's just picking and choosing what is best for at that time for that particular project and for that particular client.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I do just want to acknowledge that we're at the top of the hour, and I know I had told the participants this was likely to happen, and I don't know, they all also have their own work days and things. So if you do need to sign off, feel free to sign off. Same for Paula, who's here. I know you've got some work commitments too, but I'm happy to stay on and answer more questions. And if you are able to, as one of our panelists, to stay on and answer more questions, that would be great as well. I know, Anne, we had a question in here for you of specifically about your experience with Salesforce, if you're okay answering that.
Yeah, of course.
Do you find that the platform is better suited for particular domains over other ones? I guess that's talking about Salesforce in particular.
As in business analyst suited. Oh yeah, could you elaborate on that one? Sorry.
Yeah. So Armin, if you are on, or if you want to type in the chat a little bit more. I didn't quite read it before, but I'm assuming it's like particular like industries, but not particular BA domains.
Oh, particular industries, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Salesforce has a lot of different sort of. The best way I could describe it is aspects of the platform for different industries. Like, for instance, they have one for not-for-profit organization. They call it the non-profit starter pack, which is specialized in that field. They have a particular one for financial services, and they're going to have one for manufacturing. So yeah, Salesforce really wants to dominate whatever area they want to be in. Yeah, but yeah, there are some specialized aspects of the platform you could use in particular industries.
Very cool. All right. And Nadine, have we missed any questions along the way?
No, I think we've kind of covered everything. There's no specifics. I don't know.
All right.
Paula's still on the line because she was looking for themes, but I didn't spot any specifics that I thought required further exploration.
So feel free to get in new questions. So this would be a good time to do a recall then, right? Or like if you have a question that you feel like wasn't answered, or something new that comes up, feel free to get that in newly in the chat so that we don't overlook it. Go ahead, Paula.
Yeah, so some of the themes that you had, and I think they were answered, was around how is this different from the IIBA certification? What can you enroll in one specific module over others? And I saw Nadine had answered that. What BA tools does the program cover? And I think the panelists answered that as they went through the panelists. How do we showcase what we take from the course on our resume? A typical question we typically get, right? What support do we get as far as clarifying if our projects will work for the program or not? And then what are some software recommendations as far as not the program itself, but just technology and things that you should know as a BA? And so a lot of those questions were answered in the chat, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity if there's anything you wanted to say more about those themes, since these are pretty common themes that come up.
Yeah, the one that really stood out to me was the resume one. And Manzoli, I know you switched jobs in the midst of being in the Blueprint, right? That's when you got into the senior BA role you are in now. Can you talk a little bit about your experience using it, whether it was in your resume or the interview, or kind of how that flowed into your job search process?
Well, it really kind of helped me highlight different skills and I guess you can say experience I had. Like I was able to pull out significant, I guess, key phrases and words that I had really done in this program. So when they asked about, did you do anything with data modeling, I could pull that out. Or if they said, if the job asked, I'm trying to remember it was one thing that I was asked and I had done that was really good. I want to say process improvement. It was something about process improvement, and I could speak to that. I could show that I had that experience in that. So that is really where it was able to help me shine. I could pull out the verbiage and give the impact that it had in real world standards. Like, hey, you know what, we improved this process and it saved, or it helped the company onboard 55% of their customer service requests that they had to do. So they took the, they used to outsource this to a third party. Now they brought it in-house and we streamlined that process. So it saved them money, it saved them a little more time and waiting for someone else to do it. So that's the one example I was able to speak to.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would invite, I guess, whoever might want to contribute to this one. We do get this question about the individual modules, right? Like, can I just do this piece or this piece? And just any experiences you have of why you felt it was important to do all the pieces or how they work together for you personally. Does anyone want to chime in on that?
I think for me, I learned how to do process modeling and user story creating. And for those particular modules, it was validating what I learned and say, oh yes, you're doing it correctly. But then the other ones, especially with data modeling, I really didn't have the exposure for it. So yeah, I just wanted to build on my toolkit a lot. So I was happy to soak in as much information as you was willing to share. Yeah, so yeah, I recommend doing all of that, because there's so many different tools out there that you're just not aware of it, and you could just use a particular technique or tool for whatever given situation, and just knowing that you have that in the background really does give you confidence.
Yeah. And that's interesting because you felt like a familiarity with it, but we get that feedback sometimes. It's like, oh, I've done process models like for 10 years, but like, oh, wait, there was just this nuance that I had never really paid attention to before. And sometimes there are those aha moments for sure when you're going through something that's familiar to you.
To piggyback off that, it also kind of gives you best industry standards, because especially with process modeling, you kind of want to pack so much in there, and sometimes it's this information overload. But when you well, the industry standard that you guys helped me fine tune was what to pack in there and to limit it to the right things. So the consumer gets the relevant information in nice bite-sized adjustable pieces.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And hey, Laura, you do have a question direct to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, sorry if this is a very basic question, but I thought a domain for a BA meant either industry or platform or technology specific knowledge. Is that correct? Or does domain for a BA mean something else as well?
I think that's one of those words that people use in all different kinds of ways. But yeah, I think we use it here often for whatever your domain of expertise might be. And it could be an industry, it could be a functional area like within your organization, like HR or accounting or marketing. And it also could be a tool or a business application, like Anne has domain experience in Salesforce.com. So those are the three categories that we often see BAs specialize in or have roles organized around, but it can be used in a lot of different ways. Yeah. Okay. Do we have other questions? I've seen a couple people direct to me. So once again, just make sure they get into the public chat. And they're more about kind of like getting started. So there was one that came in that I would love for you to speak to, because they were talking about not having a technical background or a BA background. But I think, like, how do you feel like your technical background served you or didn't serve you as a BA? Like, is it something you still really rely on today in your business analyst role for success, or was, yeah, I'll stop there.
So I don't know if it's because of my technical background or being in the IT for a long time. Like I said, I still have a tendency to jump to solution, and it's the same with my colleagues too, without really dig into this the source or try to understand the needs of the stakeholders. So that's still, I mean, I've gotten a lot better. I ask a lot of questions to understand the problems and needs, instead of more focusing on the, I don't know, like building a like cool UI, that sort of thing. So yeah, but what was the question?
Was like, to what degree you feel like your technical background has set you up for success? And actually what I heard you here is like, it sort of sometimes feels like a liability, right? Like, like you jump to the solutions because you understand the solutions.
Yeah, but I use process modeling a lot, and I had very little exposure to process modeling before. And now that's the tool I use. I mean, I don't do data model, although I'm a DBA, I don't do data modeling anymore because we pretty much stopped doing in-house development. And so I don't use cases or wireframes anymore, but I use process modeling all the time and I love it. So I don't know if that's answering your question, but that was a surprise to me. And it was the hardest module for me. I struggled through it, but I love it. Like I use it to, like I said, like transform a policy to a single diagram that everyone could understand. And I use it for like developing requirements and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you.
It was a surprise.
Yeah. And I think there's been a few questions as well. I'm just going to kind of read in between the lines around Dauda's question. I apologize if I'm getting your name wrong, but of kind of how to get into business analysis in the first place, right? Like what your first move was. So like, Anne, I know you wanted to share a little bit more about your story. Do you want to just share that beginning part, like your first move and how you got in the first place?
Yeah, I was working in a non-for-profit organization, and I was in the database team, so I was doing a lot of data admin tasks, and then we were moving from our current system over to Salesforce, and then so we had a project team in place as well as we're working with a consultancy, and then I just expressed interest in wanting to learn more, and so then the organization was like, okay, maybe do a secondment then. And then that's how I got into being a BA. I was doing a part-time secondment, like 2 days with the project team and then 3 days in my normal job role. So if you feel like if there is a project team and you want to get involved, definitely express your interest and hopefully they could give you a secondment.
Yeah, and what we've been talking about today is really the foundation. You start where you're at and you take that, like you start applying some of the skills where you're at. So thank you for that. Tammy or Manzoli, do you have anything you want to share around that as well? I feel like we've heard a lot of Hio's story because she's in the midst of it, right? You're in the midst of it. Yeah.
I was having a little trouble hearing you. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, what would you consider your first step that you took to get into business analysis in the first place?
Sure, I can speak to that one. Actually, for me, I was doing it and not realizing I was doing it. So I was working in New York for a bond or a municipal asset-backed securities banking company. And I understood the application really, really well. So the managers at the time were really bogged down with other tasks. They asked me to sit on the project and just represent the group. So in understanding the application, they wanted to make certain advancements in it. And really, I had got my first exposure doing that and just like suggesting, well, do it this way. You'll run into less headaches and it'll be better business-wise for our group. And if you perform this task, or if you add this function, or if you align the pages this way, because they were really dispersing information and putting different fields that really didn't relate to each other. in so many different places, and that like killed our productivity. So that was eye-opener. And the way I found out was I met CBAP who was just hired by the company, and they asked me to show him around. So when he really asked me what do I do, I said, I'm here, I work in the bonds group, I do the onboarding, but I'm having more fun and enjoyment sitting on these projects. And I asked him, what do you do? Well, I do pretty much everything you just outlined, but probably get paid a little bit more for it. And I was like, what? So that was really eye-opening to me. And that kind of got me started in this path.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. And here you are today, Senior Business Analyst.
I know.
Yep.
And so years later.
When I first got started doing BA work, I didn't realize it was BA work either, but I had a report that we had, and it wasn't showing us the data correctly. And I asked, how do I get it fixed? And they gave me the phone number for the programmer. And we just started working hand in hand to figure out what it was doing, what it needed to do, and how to get it fixed. And I just became the go-to person to get any program fixed that was broken at the time. That's how I started out doing it.
Yep. You solve a problem.
Yes.
Yep. And then people want you to solve more problems. And then that's that virtuous cycle from there. Very cool. Well, I actually think that's a pretty, go ahead, Nadine.
I just wanted to say just one more question, which is around getting a copy of the chat.
We will release the recording of this, and it comes through Zoom that does have the chat in it. So I'm excited to look at the chat too. I know it sounds like there's been a lot of goodness in there. All right. And if you have any other questions about the Business Analyst Blueprint specifically, feel free to get in touch with us via info@bridgingthegap.com. We also have a very comprehensive FAQ you'll probably receive when you email us, as well as there's a lot of information on the enrollment page. But I'm super excited. I just want to thank again all of our panelists for being here today, taking your time to share your stories. It's so great to hear the details of what you've been doing and what you've been achieving in your careers. And I'm really proud of all of you. So thank you for being here. And thank you, Nadine, for helping support us. And I know Paula had to go too.
No problem.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Bye, have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.